check here. Just trying to see if the recording is working, so everyone just bear with us if you're listening to this. It says it's here. Just trying to see if it's... All right. I think we're good. Awesome.
Right, good work.
All right. Sorry. It's been a long time since I did a Google Hangout. So some technical difficulties off the front end there, but anybody who is trying to watch us live, I'm sorry about that. But we'll get right into it. My name is Fernando Camacho. I am the creator of the Scuba Dive Tribe, and that is an online dive community and club. And today we're talking GoPro tips with the expert in the field, Mr. Peter Bucknell. Thank you for joining me, Pete. How are you?
I'm good, Fern.
All right. So today we're going to talk. I want to pick your brain, which I've done once before. I've picked your brain on GoPro tips, but I just want to give anybody who missed our interview on the podcast, which actually just launched in iTunes this week. So I'll tell you guys how you can access that in a little bit. But first, Pete, why don't you just tell me? I'm not going to bore people with your tremendous background in video, all things video, really, because the more people I've done a bunch of these interviews for the podcast, and everybody knows you, and they say you are the best at video. So I'm not going to go into your qualifications and everything. Just trust me, this is the guy. So why don't we start? Let's just get right into it. The GoPro is becoming the big wave in underwater videography nowadays because it's so compact, easy, and the quality is just great. Why don't you first talk about what the GoPro is really capable of in the underwater setting?
So the thing that was keeping everybody out of the underwater video scene was the size and the expense, and to a certain extent the learning curve that all of those buttons, and you had to be able to operate a camera that was complicated enough on land, and you had to be able to do it underwater. So that kept probably 99.9% of people out of the underwater video world. And then the GoPro came along, and it was designed for surfing, and they didn't really go to too much trouble in the first two incarnations of the camera to make it good for underwater. So all the way up to the GoPro Hero 2, there were problems with focus, and I still get people come into my class with the GoPro 2, and they're always shocked at how much better the footage out of the other students' cameras are, the 3 and the 3 Plus, and now with the 4. So all of a sudden, these tiny little cameras, which are $400 or $500 before you start buying the peripheries, they are bringing everyone into this video world underwater, and everyone can do it. Everyone can travel with these little things. They can afford them, and they can learn how to use them pretty quickly.
Awesome, cool. So everyone's doing it, but I've seen a lot of really cool footage, and I've seen some very dark, bubbly shots that maybe were not so good, that could have been better. So why don't you just give us like kind of the top tips that'll help kind of take someone from just not thinking about it and jumping in the water to just maybe just thinking ahead just a little bit, and what we can do to kind of take some better pictures. Just what do you think are the best practices?
When I start with a new group, I'll sit them down and we'll do settings. So we'll pair the camera with the iPhone or their iPad or whatever smart device they have, and it makes it a bit easy to control. These things are very powerful as remote controls, and it's such a big screen on these things. You can really get into that tiny little menu that's it's very hard to sort of access on the camera itself. So we do that first. get all the settings right. There's a lot of mystery surrounding these resolutions and frame rates, and people don't know what it's all about. What is 4K? What is 2.7K? And I'm actually working. I've nearly finished the manuscript of an ebook, and it's going to go into all of these settings in great detail. But what I do is I give them if you don't want to read this chapter, here are the magic settings. And so 1080p is the magic resolution. 1080p is the number of pixels high that that image will be. 4K, they've changed the way the numbers work. That's not height in pixels anymore. It's sort of an approximate width. So I don't know who decided to do that, but 4K is very big. 1080p is right in the sweet spot, and the old 720, which a lot of us watch fairly happily on YouTube, that is a totally usable resolution, but it's going to be out of date soon. So 1080p, and then after that you decide on a frame rate. And frame rates, the newer GoPros, they're getting higher and higher frame rates. But the thing that they don't tell you is that you need a lot of light if you've got a very high frame rate. So if you've got say 30 frames per second, 24 is about the lowest that we would be using practically, and that's the frame rate that a lot of us were flocking to new cameras for. 24 frames per second was the new thing in video cameras because it looked cinematic. Because that's what they shoot cinema film in, 24 frames per second, until recently. So 24 is totally usable, and it needs less light. So that's where you can start. The sweet spot is 30, 48, and 60. And I've been slowly pushing up to higher frame rates because I've got very powerful lights. So some of these higher frame rates, you can use them, but you need to have good lights to manage it, or nice sunlight around you. So those are the two main things we start with: resolution and frame rate.
Okay, awesome. Now, you mentioned lighting a little bit there, and I assume that's very important. For the person who is not going to go out, well, I'm going to ask you two questions. First, for the person who's just going to jump in the water without any lights, how deep should they be going and be able to keep the ambient light working for them? And if they do want to get something, not a professional set of lightings, maybe I think you mentioned in our podcast they could get one good light source may make a big difference. What are your recommendations?
If you want to jump in the water with just the GoPro and no light, you can get some quite good results. I've done it. And you can actually go quite deep, and what the GoPro will do is it will start to accommodate those bad light situations that you're putting it in. So there's a couple of ways it'll do that. Just say you go down to, just say you're diving in the Northeast. You dive off the coast of New York, and there's a lot of sediment in the water, and as soon as you get down to 40 feet, everything starts to get a bit dark. And I do see a lot of these videos from the wreck divers here, and they're going down with no lights. And what happens is the GoPro will amplify the video signal a lot like an audio amplifier, and it'll amplify the bad and the good. So what you'll end up with is a very sort of pixelated and just not an image that you'll be very happy with. But it depends what you want. If you just want to capture the experience, you can manage it without the light. If you're not selling the video, you're just going to show it to your friends. If you want to be proud of your work, Then you have to spend a little bit of extra money. A normal light does not work. You need to get because the the GoPro has a very wide lens, and to cover the frame, to cover everything that's inside that frame that you're capturing, you need a wide light as well. So video lights have a much wider angled beam, and they're starting to come down in price, but it's probably worth doing fairly early on. I did a lot of video work with no lights for a couple of years, and you know, it was okay. But once I got the lights, I was like, why didn't I do this before? So in answer to your question, you can go, just say you're in Cozumel, you could probably do all of the diving with no lights. And the reason that is because the water is so clear there, and there's usually very little sediment in the water, and it's all carried off by the current. Every now and then there'll be a little bit lower visibility, but in my experience, you know, you can get away with no light, but you will miss out on a lot of color. So once you get down into the deeper water, if you've got a light, it's going to bring all those reds out, and your footage won't end up being very blue.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. So that's good. Especially you have to take into account what your location is and how much light that's going to be in there. But that's what I found really cool about the GoPro is that it really is out of the box, pretty powerful little camera. Now, you know, you mentioned about how the lighting can bring out the colors and stuff. Why don't you talk filters real quick? Are filters something that someone should have right away, or how much of a difference is it going to make with the GoPro?
Filters, almost a must, I would say, and they're a very cheap way to boost the quality of your footage. So for those that don't know, what happens with underwater footage is that the further away from a subject you are, you start to lose that top end of the rainbow, red, orange, yellow, and you're left with the greens and blues. So you'll notice if you get really close to a subject with a GoPro, you don't lose as much color. If you've got a filter, in blue water you want a red or orange filter. It will, and they just click on the front. Very simple. I think they're about $50, depending on what you buy. There's one, GoPro makes a very simple one, which I have actually, and they are. It's amazing that they're so expensive for what they are. I mean, they're really literally a piece of plastic. But they click on the front. Make sure you get the right one. This one's a magenta filter. This one here. And that's for green water. They come in these little bags. And for about, I think they're $50. You can check if you want. But they have two kinds. One that fits on the dive housing, and one that fits on the other housing. So as you can see, the little domes on the front are a bit different. So just make sure you get the right one. So you put one of those filters on, and it'll cover you down to, 50 feet, depending on the situation. And you can use them with your lights as well. So filters are a good thing to buy.
Okay, so you think filters for any depth is important?
Yeah, and you'll notice that when I first started out with the GoPro, there was a $10 one that you could buy by a company called Eel Vision, and it was just a little insert that went inside the camera, so you could never take it off without taking it out of the housing. So as a result, all of my topside footage was orange. So that's not very convenient. You really do want something you can take off the front. And I think Backscatter makes something as well. It's a little more expensive. Backscatter.com. I think they charge over $150 for it, and it has a little swing thing. It's all very nicely made, well engineered.
When you're down there, are you ever taking the filter off, or do you leave it on under there the whole time?
I leave it on all the time when I'm down there. The only time it ever really comes off is if I'm in extremely shallow water, and you know, they might be trying to do an entry of a diver into the water. So I won't use it then, because it does, you know, you're not losing those colors. There's not much water happening.
Cool, cool. Oh, and I do want to mention, if anybody is watching this via the website, we have this set up at scubadivetribe.com/hangout. You'll see a little Facebook chat down at the bottom. You can type a question in, and I will hopefully see it. And we can ask if you have any questions for Pete. You could go over there to check it out. Once again, that's scubadivetribe.com/hangout. And at the bottom, you can see the Facebook comments. You leave a comment there, and I'm watching it on another computer, and hopefully we can ask Pete some questions. How about we go over just real quickly, what are some common mistakes that you see some GoPro users making?
Probably besides all of the settings problems that people have, they start out and they're never going to get any good footage because they don't set the camera right. But let's say that they do all of that right. They've got lights, they've got filters, they've got it on a nice mount that keeps it steady. I think probably the biggest problem I see is it's just the wobbly nature of the way they hold the camera. So I'll see people are trying to get a steady shot, and the whole time that they're holding the camera, that one of their fins might be moving, or both of their fins are moving, and that translates into a wobbly shot. Swimming shots, same thing. I'll see people will use a big thigh flutter kick, and that will create a roll. They might have a big frog kick, which creates an up and down or a surge. People just need to learn to keep still, and I learned on a larger rig, so it was much easier for me. There's a rule about the larger the rig, the steadier the shot. There's a mass in the water that creates resistance, and this is the thing that enables the professionals to get a really steady shot. If you can do that with a GoPro, that's skill. If you can get a really steady shot, it's experience, it's practice, and it's knowledge that help you do it.
You recommend holding the camera close, or far out, or on a stick to try to get those a little bit steadier?
The trick with holding anything steady is to be relaxed, and if you hold it with your arms straight out, that's very difficult. If you hold it in a relaxed position with your elbows slightly bent, hands relaxed, and maybe even touching a part of your body or your rig so that there's a little more support. If I was on land, obviously the most steady shot is on a tripod. The next steadiest shot is if you are leaning against something that's not moving, and touching a wall, resting an elbow on a table, something like that. If there's nothing to touch, then it's just the floor, and all of a sudden it's whatever movement happens between the floor and the camera is your fault. So if you can avoid any shakes of any kind by just getting that energy to flow from the floor up to the camera without any changes in energy, that's when you get a really steady shot. So in the water, let's see. If I'm trying to get a nice steady shot and there's nothing to hold on to, there's no wreck, there's no other diver that I can hold on to without him looking, I'll I'll spread my feet out as wide as I can. I'll sit vertically in the water, and I'll put my fins out. And at that point, your only problem is your breath lifting you and letting you drop as you breathe in and out. So there's a couple of tricks that I use. One of them is to avoid. I mean, of course, we don't hold our breath, but to avoid breathing in and out at the top of our lungs and keeping all this air going stale inside our lungs. I try and breathe in the bottom half of my lungs and just breathe out very slowly while I'm getting that 20-second shot or whatever it is. So if you decide to, if you make a conscious decision to get a shorter shot, 15 to 20 seconds, you tend to get a steadier shot because it's like a attention span. You can hold steady for 20 seconds, but you can't hold steady for 3 minutes. So that's a lot of that is that's a big part of getting a steady shot, is going for shorter shots and then really focusing on keeping still.
Okay, yeah, that's important. I think when we're all looking through that little viewfinder, we're just so focused on what we're seeing that we forget what we're doing. Like you said, our fin kicks and how we're moving our body, because we're just staring. Trying to stare at what we're shooting at. You had mentioned and John, one of my Scuba Dive Tribe buddies, had to ask a question here. Sent me a question. Regarding the length of your clips, so you mentioned, to keep it steady, doing those short clips is going to be easier. Do you recommend doing lots of short clips? Should we do these long clips? What's the length that you? I mean, obviously it might depend on what you're shooting, but what do you think?
Yeah, if it's a whale shark, swimming towards you, I wouldn't press stop at any point really. But if it's let's an example. Let's say it's a lionfish. They tend to be. They don't move much. They'll sit there and they'll say, "Come on, I dare you." And so I'll get a wide shot, maybe 15 seconds. Then I'll come in a little closer. I'll get a medium shot. But once I've got those two shots of 15 seconds or so, then I can come in and get a really close shot. And that's where the risk of scaring the critter away is. But you've already got those two shots to fall back on. So I'll have 15, and then if I get really close, I might hold on it for 30 seconds and see what happens. So, but as an editor, you want to live life. You don't want to spend your whole life in front of a screen. So, my advice to those people who have a head mount and they just press start at the beginning and stop at the end, don't throw away the head mount. And start shooting shorter clips, and you won't want to slit your wrists at the end of the month when you've got all of that footage, and you just want to beat yourself up for not editing it and feeling guilty.
Awesome. Those are great tips. And this is a topic that you and I discussed in much detail in the podcast. So I just want to let you guys know what that link is. If you want to go see my interview, my full interview with Pete here, you can go to scubadivetribe.com/episode1. And Pete was the honorary first guest on the podcast, and he goes into great detail. We really get into it. It's a really great show. If you are a GoPro guy, or gal, I really recommend you go check that out. Now, Pete, I know you teach classes. I mean, you wrote the Patty GoPro book. You teach classes in New York City. And you are also have graciously agreed to teach a special hands-on class over in Cozumel this January on the 5th to 11th. And in a second, I'm going to tell you guys how you can join us and take part in that. But Pete, why don't you just describe what's going to happen in this class? What are we going to do there in Cozumel?
Cozumel's going to be a regular dive trip. It just so happens we'll be doing the class that I teach in New York City we'll do a couple of dives, we'll have a couple of classes, and then the rest will just be, enjoying yourself and using the new skills, and hopefully coming home with some nice footage. So we'll go through the same stuff that I do in my PADI class here, and we'll do we'll make sure everyone's got the right settings. We'll talk about safety. We'll talk about boat diving. We'll talk about some of the issues that a lot of people have to learn the hard way, and things like how to stop your camera from fogging up. Some of the tips that I've got from my years of going to tropical locations and with nice air-conditioned rooms, and having fogging in your camera can be a horrible thing. So we'll talk about lights and filters. We'll see what people have. Maybe we can, switch off with people and see if anyone wants to try this or that. If somebody brings a pole and somebody, has a little tripod or something like that, there'll be some nice things for people to try. And then we'll go and we'll shoot a film. Everyone will have a shot list, and the trick will be to follow the simple instructions that they've had during the class, and then we'll edit it basically on iMovie. It'll be or iMovie or whatever, maybe using the GoPro Studio if people have a PC, and people will be able to break the seal on that editing program, and we'll get rid of some of the fear that people experience. And so I'll guide people through that initial editing process. So people will be able to make their own films after this, and that's what the course is going to be all about. And Cozumel's the absolute best place to do video because the water's clear. There's drift diving, which is fantastic for video. You can use the current to your advantage. And so you can, instead of having to swim things up, you can just breathe in a little bit, and then you'll be carried by the current and get these beautiful shots that you could only do on land with a crane. So I can't wait. It's going to be fantastic.
And I mean, that's the cool thing. Here you are going. This is what I love about this trip. We're going to the best location for video with the best guy to teach you how to use your GoPro. I mean, I don't know what could be better than that. And we'll be staying at the Coral Princess Hotel in Cozumel, which is a very beautiful resort. They've got basically everything you could possibly imagine. And then we'll be diving right there. It's going to be really an awesome trip. And if you would like to join us, if you want to get in on the class and come with us and dive with the tribe, you can reach out to me at fern@scubadivetribe.com. Just shoot me an email, tell me you're interested, and I will get you the info of how you can join us. If you are listening to this and you are in our dive club, the Inner Circle, you have the information already over in our private group. But if you don't have it, just shoot me a message and I will make sure you get it. But this is going to be a really cool. I feel like it's like a once in a lifetime type of opportunity for you guys to get in the water with Pete and really fine tune your GoPro video. And I think you're going to come out on the other side of it You're going to look at your footage going in and going out, and I think you're going to be pretty impressed with that. So, Pete, thanks so much for taking the time today, and thank you so much for offering to do this for the tribe and diving with us. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much. I know I have to let Pete go. He's got to go trick-or-treating now. It's Halloween now, so I'm sure he's going, door to door in Manhattan, trick-or-treating. My kids will be home from school soon, so I'll be out there. I got my costume right here. I'm ready to go, so I'm ready to hit it. Well, Pete, thanks so much for taking the time with me, and I hope to see you very soon.
No worries.
All right. Take care, everybody. Once again, if you want to get on our trip, just email me, fern@scubadivetribe.com, and we hope to see you there. Take care, everybody.